Hello, it is the Sinister Gambino here with a new video. In this video I'm going to be going over the details that were dropped yesterday on the Moonshiners DLC. That'll be coming out on December 13th. So they're apparently only going to add one this time around. And from what I remembered, and my thought ended up being correct, they were going to expand on the frontier pursuits like right after the initial release of the first one. That's definitely quite nice. So what I did was I jotted down a bunch of things on like a note or something that I wanted to explain for the four like different paragraphs, of course, on here. So starting off on the first paragraph, of course, it's the most illegal frontier pursuit, and that will be coming out into the game, as other ones simply lack the focus on negativity. So for example, the bounty hunter, that one in my opinion is definitely the most honorable between the three that are in the game right now. Because obviously you're going against bounties, which you're pretty much always going to have a good reason for going for one, of course. Trader, it pretty much involves animals, so it's not that bad in my opinion. I would say it's not as good as the bounty hunter still. And then the collector, the only thing I can really see about collecting things in terms of like a negative like role would be like, I believe there's underground collectibles that are like next to graves. That, for example, is like the only thing I could think of that would make the collector role negative in any way, shape, or form. But yeah, this one, no doubt, is pretty much a negative role. So it's definitely nice they're exploring a lot of the like negative side of things this time around, it seems. So yeah, it's nice. It's definitely going for a much different direction, I would say. And then the next thing I found interesting about the first paragraph was it releases on Friday. Releases on the 13th, which is actually a Friday, believe it or not. And also it makes it release on a Friday the 13th, so that's also quite interesting for sure. And I'm not entirely sure, but isn't that quite an unusual drop day for a Red Dead Online DLC? I feel like Red Dead Online has always had DLCs that released on like a Tuesday or a Thursday, logically, because that's like when the event weeks happen. So yeah, it might be like the first DLC in the game that's releasing on a pretty like oddball day. However, can't really blame them because like GTA Online, I believe there was like one of the Ill-Gotten Gains updates, for example, and a whole bunch of other updates kind of. Those were released on like weird days as well, I'm pretty sure. Now nowadays for that game, they pretty much release their stuff on Thursday, I feel. So seeing a Friday release day is kind of interesting in my opinion. And then the next thing I found interesting is this rolls out a deal for traders. However, there's going to be more of that going on later in the newswire. But yeah, next thing I found interesting was it will involve the first purchasable property. So you could kind of, I guess, consider the camp a purchasable property. But really, it's like just like props on the like actual map. It's not like a full-blown property. So that's definitely quite nice, as we're finally going to get like an actual property in the game. It's definitely been long overdue considering GTA Online has had properties in the game since launch. So yeah, that'll be pretty interesting. Of course, there's going to be a lot more on that later, kind of. And then the last thing I found interesting with the first paragraph is it talks up something about like perfecting distillation methods, avoiding the law, and then putting a rival out of business. So what I took from that is those might be possible ways to level up the Moonshiner. Because obviously, yeah, you can sell like moonshine and stuff, obviously, but like there's probably going to be like other ways, I would think, to level up the role. Because I feel like there's like a couple different ways to rank up the roles in the game, like right now. Like you don't necessarily need to focus like on the task at hand in some ways. For example, like the collector, yeah, you still gotta collect, but like you can find collectibles off of dead people without actually having to like go out your way to collect stuff. So it could be kind of things like that. So small things like that could have increased the experience. Who knows, maybe like avoiding a lot like altogether in the free mode, not just specifically for the role, could increase the XP. That would be interesting. But yeah, there's going to be a little more on putting a rival out of business later on as well. But yeah, now we'll be moving on to paragraph number 2. On to paragraph number 2, I only found like a couple things interesting on that paragraph. But the first one was it mentioned that completing a trader sell mission or keyword or reaching rank 5 of trader is required to start. So I don't know if the wording, I don't know if that's just kind of bad wording, but it kind of sounds like you could either do a trader sell mission at like any rank between like 1 and 5, or of course at any time. Or if you don't want to sell anything at all throughout your whole time as a trader, since it came out, you can just simply reach rank 5 if there's actually some way to do that without selling a single time to be allowed to move on to the Moonshiner. So you will have to level up your trader most likely to rank 5 unless you do a single trade sell mission. That could alleviate the rank requirement, though. Just to be safe, I would recommend people do at least reach to rank 5, of course. And of course, rank 5 is the last, like, novice rank for the trader before it goes on to, like, distinguished or whatever, for those who may be curious. And then the last thing I found interesting for paragraph number 2 is it says the contact of this is basically going to be Maggie Fike. So, not sure if this person's going to be one of the more involved people that gets you into this, because, for example, the bounty hunter person, I would say the bounty hunter person is the least involved of all the people right now. You basically just got introduced to the bounty hunter role, and were asked if you wanted to, like, buy a license from the contact, whoever was involved with, like, the bounty hunter. I wish you might have some, like, dialogue things as well with some, like, legendary bounties. But because, for the most part, since the bounty hunter, those are mostly, like, stranger missions. Those are slightly glorified stranger missions. Those don't really involve the contact all that much. As for the trader, of course, Crips is pretty much like always on the camp, so he's a lot more involved, I would say, than the bounty hunter and that contact. So I would say he's pretty much always involved with it, and Crips in some way will apparently be involved with you getting into the Moonshiner business, since apparently the trader business is actually the most important one in terms of moving on to the Moonshiner business, according to the sounds of the newswire, of course. And then the collector. Similar to Crips, you kind of always see the collector. Of course, you basically sell your stuff to the collector. So I would kind of say the collector, in a sense, is kind of the most important one in terms of the contact that's involved. So I feel like, honestly, the bounty hunter was kind of the least involved, and that was kind of a one-case scenario, I feel. Just due to how the bounty hunter mission things are, like, structured. So if I were to take a guess, this Maggie Fike, or Fike, whatever, is going to be one of the more involved contacts, if not, like, the most involved contact in the game. Considering she literally has her own set of story missions, as I'll be going on to later. But yeah. On to paragraph number 3. Apparently the property will be a Moonshining Shack, which is pretty interesting, I would say, which I'll be going on to more details on that in a little bit. And then it says something about the main floor being like an acting front with details of an ordinary homestead. So is it partially a casual property as well? Considering like the launch of the game, there's been like no property to camps. Literally like the closest thing we have right now to some kind of property. Like for example, though, the properties we had since it launched GTA Online, of course. It has like 2-car properties, 6-car, and like 10-car properties. Even since the start, the 10-car apartments, even though the apartments weren't that useful like to begin with, eventually with the heist DLC, it added functionality to like the heist planning room, which I believe was a feature in the 10-car apartments, for example, since day one. They just really weren't utilized until the heist DLC came out. So I wonder if this is their way of making up for not having properties in day one of the game. So will it be like a combination of like a typical property, in addition to like the basement, as it says later on, how the basement itself is basically where the business is ran? I don't know, seems quite interesting, I would say. It kind of seems like it can also be a pretty casual property as well, not just in terms of like running a business, so it could be like a combination of both. But yeah. Onto the final thing I really found interesting with paragraph number 3 is the business is in the basement, of course, and it, in terms of like a modern like iteration of that, I got reminded of like the old Neil Ranch. I believe the old Neil Ranch has like a downstairs of like a methamphetamine like thing. So does that kind of confirm that like the moonshine business is basically like a old timer version of like the methamphetamine business we have in Grand Theft Auto Online? Would kind of fit, because like the trader business is kind of MC business that we have right now. So are some of these roles like a way of like adding like MC business versions for like Red Dead Online? Definitely seems like an interesting thing to think about. But yeah, I'll be going on to paragraph number 4. On to paragraph number 4, the first thing that I found interesting was the new story missions that will apparently be coming out. And apparently, I believe these are actually going to be the first solo story missions, because if I remember, all the other ones have been 2 to 4 players or something like that. Or at least you have to have at least one other player, is what I mean, of course. So I think this will be the first set of story missions that can be done solo, as far as I remember and understand, of course. That's definitely going to be quite exciting. And the way it describes it kind of reminds me of like the dispatch services from Grand Theft Auto Online, actually from like the San Andreas Super Sport Series update, or whatever it was, Dispatch 1 through 6, which were like 2 to 4 player contact missions or something like that, where you, I believe, kill people, of course, that were involved with trying to take down Martin Madrazo or something like that. It was quite interesting, those dispatch services. The way they described those sound interesting, though I guess, to be fair, a bunch of day 1 missions, I guess you can consider trying to get revenge on people. I tried messing with your contact you're working for, of course. But well, anyways, on to the second thing I found interesting was the elimination of a rival operation is apparently going to be done in a story mission. I believe earlier it said you'll be taking down rival operations in like plural, so I don't know if the one in the story missions will be the only one, or if there's actually going to be like different ones you can take down through like the free mode and whatever you have to do in like the free mode to level up the Moonshiner or whatever. Definitely want to be pretty interesting to see for when the update comes out, of course. Third thing I found interesting with paragraph number 4 was the underground bar is a property renovation. So apparently you can get underground bar for your property, your Moonshining Shack or whatever. And apparently it lets you serve your own shine. So I wonder if the shine you make, of course, will serve as like some kind of bar that you can see or something like that when you're in the property. Similar to how like the bunker has like a bar for it with like its stock and stuff like that. And I wonder if it will like deplete like over time and whatnot for it to like people out go over to your bar. So it seems it's definitely definitely seems you'll be able to be pretty creative with your business in terms of how you'll distribute the shine. So you might be able to like sell it as well as have like an active like bar where people can go and drink some of it as well. Which might give it a bit more of a legal purpose in a way, I guess, as well. Unless that's the only way you get money through it or something like that. That would definitely be another thing that would be interesting to see for when the update comes out. And then the next thing I found interesting with paragraph number 4 was the property as decoration renovations. So, I don't know if it will be as interesting as the casino penthouse. And it's like decoration feature. Or it's just going to be like 2 or like 3 options you can choose from. Like with biker clubhouses and like bunkers and GTA and whatnot. On to the last thing that I found interesting with paragraph number 4 is apparently the property has an option to add a country band and a dance floor. Something like that. It says some interesting thing about a country band. And then the dance floor thing reminds me of like the nightclubs, of course, with GTA, of course. Except I don't really think the dance floor is what's like a renovation, of course. But I think it came with it, considering it's a nightclub property. It does make sense in that case. Though I guess in this case here, you won't have to pay for a dance floor. And then with the nightclub, you have to choose like a boy and a girl dancer, like a group of 2 boy and like girl dancers, where you can choose like one of both, I think. Something like that. So I don't know if that's what it means by like the country band. I don't know if it will be something like that where you can like customize some of the like people of it or something like that. But yeah, regardless, that's it that I found for paragraph number 4, and on to the final paragraph. Finally, onto the final paragraph of the newswire. I found a couple things interesting with it personally. And the first thing is that Outlaw Pass number 2 is going to be launching alongside the update, of course. Not surprised, of course, by that. However, I believe other companies, the way they do this kind of thing is they kind of have the Outlaw Pass released like right after their previous pass, whatever pass they would do, of course. I'm just using Outlaw Pass in the example, of course. But basically what I think they should do, of course, is they should have when one expires, the next one like automatically takes place. Like, if they want to do that, of course, a good way they can do that is they can have whatever Outlaw Pass in at like whenever the last day of the update is. And then whenever the next update comes, they can introduce the next Outlaw Pass, and that would be the day the one from before expires. So if they are going to keep doing Frontier Pursuit roles like that, instead of having like a long wait between waiting for battle passes, I think that would be a much better way to do them personally. That's just my opinion. But still, regardless, the next Outlaw Pass is coming when this update releases, which is quite nice. And then the next thing I found interesting on this paragraph is the mention of the Navy revolver, which is basically an entirely new revolver. As I mentioned with my like PC details video, which I believe was like the last like news sort of like video I did, I think I mentioned with the release of the high power pistol, Rockstar would have like no more like old revolvers or pistols to choose from Red Dead Redemption. Of course, you could say they could choose from Red Dead Revolver. That's possible, I guess, but I don't really think it would make sense to choose from Red Dead Revolver. I kind of think it's in its own era, because it's kind of probably like a 3D era version of Red Dead, whereas Redemption and Redemption 2 are technically HD era, of course. But yeah, it's kind of the start of seeing new revolvers with DLCs, which is quite nice. And I sure hope that Navy revolver isn't like a colored variation of a revolver we already had. So I definitely hope it's not like a minor like change with a revolver, like for example the high roller revolver, which is basically just a fancy looking version of the, I believe, the double action or like the Schofield or something like that, with like no customizations and whatnot. However, it's possible it could be, sadly, because with the last update we had, of course, the Frontier Pursuits with the Bounty Hunter, Trader, and Collector, there's like variants of weapons tied to the different roles, so who knows, it could kind of be something like that, though I'd think it would kind of be named after like Moonshiner if that was the case. I don't know, there's probably going to be weapons like that that are just like colored variants of like all the modifications already on it. Like for example, there's like a Lancaster repeater, something like that in the game. That's themed off of like the Bounty Hunter Collector, something like that. So maybe there could be weapons like that, of course. But yeah, I just hope it's like a very new revolver. And as for the picture that's above it, I think that might be it in the picture, because the way that like the picture's angled, the girl looks like she's holding the gun with one hand, and then she has like her other hand like touched to her chest or something like that. It kind of looks like that's the case in the picture. I don't know. Maybe with the angle it's kind of hard to tell if she's holding the gun with two hands or not, so it could just be another like repeater in that picture, but who knows, that could easily be the Navy revolver for all I know. And then the final thing I found interesting with this news wire was apparently the outfit slots with the wardrobe will be expanded upon. Now it's also interesting to mention, I believe whenever they increased the outfit slots in like GTA, it was always of like a heist update, so I don't know if that says anything about that. Probably has nothing to do with anything that's a heist. I don't know, they could have like one of the new story missions could kind of be similar to that, similar to how like the second wave of story missions with like the spring 2019 update, there was a mission that kind of played out like a heist, but it was kind of just like a typical story mission. And like somewhere in Synchrony could be something like that, but that's probably the closest we would get. But yeah, last thing I found interesting was the increase of outfit slots that will be coming into the update December 13th, of course. But yeah, and of course if they have more details on this update in the future, I'll definitely be sure to cover them in some kind of video if I find them worthy of talking about. But yeah, that's probably going to be it for this video. Hope you enjoyed.